questions, you can note that in the chat as well. Now I'll go ahead and toss it to Council President Andrew Friedson for opening remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions. Council President, to you.
Thank you, Jordan. Good to see everybody. Glad you could join us this morning and appreciate you joining us today. Just want to begin quick recap of a busy weekend. It was great to celebrate all that we have in Montgomery County. I was able to attend a Lunar New Year Tet Festival at Northwood High School, which was incredible. About 2,000 people going through Northwood High School. It was standing room only, which was really great, and presented a proclamation to celebrate the Lunar New Year with the county executive. Was also able to celebrate India Republic Day in East County with the Southern Asian Seventh-day Adventist Church, and then joined the 44th Annual Women's Legislative Breakfast at USG. And I was able to not only be in a huge room of incredibly talented and powerful women, but also to have an opportunity to highlight some of the efforts that I've been able to lead on the county council recently, including paid parental leave, which we passed for county employees, a bill that I had sponsored previously, and to require lactation lounges for working parents in public buildings in Montgomery County buildings as we move forward as well. We also discussed the historic opportunity that we have in Maryland to enshrine reproductive freedom at the ballot box. Look forward to advocating for that in my personal capacity, and look forward to the opportunity to do that. We want to enshrine in the state constitution our values that Maryland will always be a place that is safe for women, a place that uplifts women, and a place where we ensure that anybody seeking the healthcare that they need can get it in a dignified and a safe way. So look forward to that. I know many of you have questions about upcoming council matters, so I just want to jump into a couple items first, and I'm sure there'll be questions about this, but the Inspector General report on MCPS that came out last week. As you know, we issued a joint statement about the joint committee hearing that we will have coming up on the 8th at 3 p.m. It's an audit committee and education and culture committee chaired by Vice President Stewart and Education and Culture Chair Jawando. The three of us had put out a statement to make sure immediately upon receipt that we had scheduled that, and we'll be moving forward with that. We'll be asking tough questions. We'll be following up on what happened, what is happening, and what will happen in response to the findings of that report and the prior reports, and the issues that we know exist and that need to be addressed in a transparent and accountable way. We'll continue to push for increased accountability and transparency. We know that that's what our educators and our families and our staff members deserve, and we'll continue to push for that. I did want to just acknowledge the work of the Inspector General, Megan Lamarzi. We have the utmost confidence in her abilities, in the office's independence, and are really pleased that we have given them more power. We have provided 2 positions to that office, specifically to look into MCPS issues. I have led efforts on the council working with colleagues over the past 5 years to expand the role of the Inspector General to ensure that the Inspector General has the resources to do these type of investigations. So we'll continue to do that broadly, and specifically we have the joint committee session on the 8th, where we'll examine the findings, including the deficiencies which the Inspector General indicated were previously identified and reported to MCPS and need to be addressed. Especially repeat findings are something that we need to dig into more specifically. Similarly, last week we had the Takoma Park Minor Master Plan public hearing. We were in Takoma Park at Takoma Park Middle School. The effort is part of our ongoing commitment to go into the communities where we are doing land use in particular. I've made a commitment as the Planning, Housing, and Parks Chair for this council, and as council president this year, especially on master plans, especially when it comes to land use policy decisions that have such a significant impact in their specific communities, that we are going to go into the communities to have our public hearings. We had a significant turnout and look forward to robust discussions. It will start this afternoon at 1:30 p.m. We'll at the PHP committee, we'll take up the plan, which will focus on the introduction and the vision for the plan area. And we'll start with some of the plan-wide policy recommendations, including land use, historic preservation, transportation, and the environment. Next work session will cover the plan-wide recommendations related to housing, parks, trails, and open spaces. And then we'll move into district level recommendations, concluding with a third work session to address the district level recommendations and the plan implementation. So we'll be taking that up over the coming weeks and look forward to those conversation and those efforts. Just so everyone knows, the plan area covers those areas near and along Maple and Lee Avenues, the Erie Center and the Washington Adventist Hospital and Adventist University campuses. So just for everybody's understanding, we had a public hearing on spending affordability guidelines that is coming up tomorrow afternoon. We'll help set the stage for the FY25 operating budget. And those are significant conversations that we'll need to have. And as many of you know, I've spent a lot of time and energy on fiscal and budget related matters. We'll continue to work on those efforts. The Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee will make a recommendation on the guidelines on February 1st later this week, and the council is scheduled to consider that on February the 6th. Last week, I also participated in the point in time survey with some colleagues. I kicked off the effort in Rockville. I think Marilyn Balcom joined me in Rockville. I know Kate Stewart was in Silver Spring. We had over 100 volunteers. I was out until about 3:30 in the morning on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And it really was a window into what many members of our community are experiencing on a daily and a nightly basis. We were fortunate. The weather was very mild and very modest as compared to what it has been in previous years. But it is a reminder of the challenges facing our unsheltered population, particularly in recent weeks, which were, not only sub-freezing, but sub-20 degrees in the teens and extremely dangerous in many ways. So look forward to working together with our services to end and prevent homelessness and our community partners on addressing those issues as we move forward. And with that, I think that covers most of the updates, and I will turn it back to you, Jordan, to facilitate some Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Council President Friedson. Now we'll open up for questions. Reporters, I see some questions coming in. Friendly reminder, if you have any questions, note that in the chat, or you can raise your hand. Also, a friendly reminder that members from the Spanish media, we have interpretation services available as well. We did get a direct message from Fran Murphy up first from my MCM. Good morning, Fran.
Good morning. Thanks for letting me go first. President Friedson, I think in September, Mr. Giwando asked the school board for a copy, an unredacted copy of the Jackson-Lewis report. And as far as we can determine by asking other council members, that request has not been fulfilled. I think it would go a long way towards transparency. What are your thoughts about that? And why don't we have it yet?
Well, I've been very public about that. I was public in that hearing. I've said it before that unless there's a specific legal reason not to do it, that we would like to see the unredacted report. So I have said that before. I'll say it again. I agree. I don't think there's a lot of daylight among council members that we would like to see the unredacted report. And I think that a report that is at least less redacted than the one that has been shared publicly should be shared publicly. So I share that view, and I don't think that there is a lot of daylight among council members on our interest in receiving that as council members, and also to the extent possible in sharing that with the public. I've said before that the Public Information Act is intended to add transparency, not to diminish it. And I think we need to keep that in mind as it is used as a rationale for both redacting and for withholding information from the public view.
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Fran. Up next, Tom Fitzgerald with Fox 5. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Jordan, Council President, friend just asked what I was going to ask, so let me move on so we don't repeat ourselves this morning. In regards to the superintendent, should their superintendent resign given the dysfunctional relationship that now exists between her and your Board of Education?
That's a personnel matter between the Board of Education and the superintendent. I will say that the issue needs to be resolved, and it needs to be resolved as quickly as possible because the school system needs stability. And so however that is resolved, which is a personnel matter between the superintendent and the Board of Education, I am hopeful and I am urging that decision is made as soon as possible, because the longer it goes, the more challenging it is for the 25,000 employees who work for the school system, for the 163,000 students who attend, for their families, and for the public at large.
So are you not calling on her to resign, or are you calling for the board to resolve this dispute?
I'm calling on the board and the superintendent to resolve the dispute.
There has been a conversation by Councilperson Ludke recently that the council does have the power to remove Board of Education members. Do you know whether or not that power extends to the superintendent?
It's my understanding that it does not extend to the superintendent based on my understanding of the law. She is an employee of the Board of Education. We have a limited role when it comes to the Board of Education. It is specific to individual members of the board for very specific circumstances, including immorality, misconduct in office, incompetency, or willful neglect of duty. There's a formal legal process. It requires a copy of the charges and the opportunity to request a public hearing within a specified period of 10 days. The board then, under law, appoints the replacements for the vacancy. So there has been some suggestion that the council should remove the entire board. There would be no board in that case. So there's also a pretty long process that would take. And I think it's important to remember, these are duly elected officials. To overturn the will of the voters in an unprecedented action, first of all, I don't think we're there. And I think it would cause a tremendous amount of instability in an environment where we need more stability. But to overturn the will of the voters would be a severe decision, and something that I don't think any of us take lightly at all. And it's important to remember that the voters will have an opportunity to weigh in on school board members in just a few months. So this process allows the voters to pick their elected officials who represent them on the school board. And I respect the will of the voters. And I think, we all should keep that in mind.
President, respectfully, you're an elected official as well, too, and you've been president a couple of weeks now. You've come out every single week and answered our questions. Whether you liked them or not, you gave an answer. The Board of Education seems to be in a cocoon right now where anybody asks them a question, they say it's a personnel matter, and media questions specifically don't get answered. The public sessions, they listen to the people and then move on. Does the Board of Education have a responsibility to start speaking to the populace of Montgomery County about this?
I think every elected official has a responsibility to be held accountable and to accept questions and to accept public scrutiny. And that includes from the media. That's why I'm here. So I feel very strongly about that. I'll continue to feel strongly about that. I will continue to call and push for that. But we are all independently elected officials. We're all duly elected, and we all are held to the standards that voters hold us accountable to.
Just a quick one. Do you need that unredacted report before February 8th so you're not flying blind when you have your meeting?
we've been calling for it and continue to call for it and would like to see it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tom. Up next, we have Megan McGrath from NBC4. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. Touched on this a little bit here, but in terms of what kind of power does the council have to kind of deal with this issue here, and how far should that go at this stage? I know you spoke on that a little bit. And then the other question was, who do you expect will be testifying at that meeting on February the 8th?
Well, we'll definitely have the Inspector General because we're overseeing an Inspector General report. I expect that we'll have representatives from the Board of Education and MCPS leadership. We're still working out exactly who will be in attendance on February 8th, but certainly, we're going to have tough questions and we're going to want people there who can answer them.
Great. Is that it, Megan? Okay, up next, we have Kate Ryan with WTOP. Good morning, Kate.
Hi, good morning. Would the leadership that you hope will be there, would that extend to the superintendent? And has the superintendent been in touch with council members? Then I have a follow-up.
Well, yes, I think the superintendent is still having meetings and is in contact with council members. She's still serving as the superintendent. But it's not lost on us that there is a dispute between the Board of Education and the superintendent. And as I noted earlier, we'd like to see that resolved as quickly as possible because we need to move forward and we need to understand exactly how we're moving forward. And we'll continue to push. I'll continue to push for a resolution to be made as quickly as possible.
Are you asking specifically that she will be there on February 8th to answer questions?
As I said, I expect the Board of Education and MCPS leadership to be represented. We're still working out exactly who will be in attendance at the meeting. It's premature at this time to decide that. We're still having conversations among the Joint Committee leaders to set up the meeting and determine how the meeting will work. But generally, the Inspector General, MCPS leadership, and the Board of Education would be in attendance to answer questions. And we're just going to want to make sure that we set it up in a way where we have the appropriate folks at the table who can answer questions that council members are going to have.
Got it. And then just very briefly, you've addressed this, but I did want to follow up on the potential, the power that the council does have to remove board members. And you've talked about that, but do you feel that this Board of Education, and people have used that phrase again and again, duly elected officials, they are the employer of the superintendent, has this board done its due diligence in this matter?
Well, we're going to ask tough questions about that on February 8th, and we still have questions that are unanswered. So, we're working with the Board of Education. We're working with the leadership. We want to make sure that we are addressing these issues to the extent that we can. Our primary role as a county council is a budgetary role to provide oversight over the over $3 billion budget that we appropriate, and we take that role very seriously.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate. Up next, we have Kelly Lynn with WJLA TV. Good morning, Kaylee. Good morning.
Kelly, I think you're still muted.
Yeah, I think you're muted.
All right.
There
Good.
you
I'm muted now. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Speaking of the budget, just wondering, would the council consider using the budgetary process? In other words, reducing funding to the school system to help bring about changes in the way things are being handled regarding sexual harassment claims, et cetera?
Well, certainly, I think the council takes its budget authority very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're holding the school system accountable for the funds that we provide. But the idea that we would punish educators and children for disagreements with leadership, that is something that I think would not be appropriate. So we need to balance the dynamic of ensuring that the over $3 billion of taxpayer money that we are responsible for allocating is allocated in a way that is appropriate and that we hold the school system to the highest possible standards, that we are accountable and that we are transparent and that we get results for that funding. But the idea that we would use it as a leverage point, which could potentially penalize educators and children, I don't think that that would be an appropriate use of our role in our function. So there's a balance here. The balance is, how do we ensure accountability and transparency and results from the dollars that we are appropriating to the public school system? But will I use the budget authority as a leverage point, as a wedge, which could ultimately penalize children? That's not something that I'd be comfortable with personally.
Do you, at this point, and the council, have confidence in the leadership of Monifa McKnight and the school board?
We're working very hard to ensure that the public and we have confidence in the school leadership, including the Board of Education and the superintendent and the MCPS leadership.
Would the council, first of all, what do you believe are the most important changes in light of the findings of that OIG report? What are the most important changes that need to be made? And would the council be taking perhaps a no confidence vote on this matter?
Well, I don't think the council is going to weigh in on the Board of Education's personnel. I don't think we're going to take a formal vote. Individual council members, I may have opinions that they can share, and we'll see if they do. The whole point of the meeting on the February 8th is to dig into these questions and to hear from the school system of what the response is. We want to hear from the Board of Education specifically, and we want to hear from MCPS leadership specifically. So that is the whole reason why we're having that audit report. We have an Inspector General set of recommendations. I would expect that every single one of those recommendations move forward and are implemented. We want to hear what has already been implemented, what changes have been made. There are still a number of unanswered questions that I know council members have, and that we're going to ask at the discussion on February 8th. So the main point here is what has happened in response to these issues, and what changes are being made, and how can we hold the school system, and how can the school system hold itself accountable, and how can we hold all of ourselves accountable to the public for implementing the changes that are needed. I've talked before about anonymous complaints and the handling of anonymous complaints in the last hearing that we had at the Education and Culture Committee that I joined back in the fall. And one of my main areas of focus was the culture within MCPS, and the idea of anonymous complaints not being investigated with the level of thoroughness and seriousness that anonymous complaints should. I raised the concern of why anonymous complaints occur, and oftentimes it's for fear of retribution. And that exposes two aspects in any organization. One, a culture of fear among staff members, which is absolutely unacceptable. And number two, a culture of not wanting to self-improve, of not wanting to acknowledge and address issues. If you're not taking in anonymous complaints and investigating them seriously enough, it doesn't demonstrate a level of commitment to addressing the issue. We've talked about the email question and how long emails are stored. That was a major question that came up. We want to follow up on all of these issues and all of these questions, some of which are included, many of which are included in the Inspector General report, some of which are additional questions related to the Inspector General report that I and other council members, I am sure, will be asking on February the 8th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Kelly. Thank you. Up next, we have Jenny Bixby with Moco 360. Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning, Jordan. Hi, Andrew. Several reporters have asked about the authority that the council has, and I understand there's certain things that, like you said, you don't want to penalize students and educators by cutting the budget. You feel like it would be an overstep to get rid of the Board of Education. I guess what I'm kind of curious about is once we have this meeting, once this information is out there, and I understand that part of the whole point is that you don't have all the information, you want that unredacted report. But after that information is out there, what would the council be doing next? What does the council have the authority to do other than this meeting kind of serving as forcing, for lack of a better word, the school system to put this information out there? Kind of what would be the next steps? What does the council have the authority to do?
Well, there's a number of next steps. The first of all is the Inspector General has a follow-up mechanism herself. That office, as part of their role, they make recommendations, and I know that they are working on following through with several of their recommendations to ensure that they are implemented. The Education and Culture Committee, subsequent to this Inspector General joint committee between the Audit Committee, which oversees the Inspector General, and the Education and Culture Committee, the Committee of Jurisdiction over MCPS, they will take up and follow up on the implementation as well. So the council has budgetary authority. That budgetary authority, I think, should be focused on outcomes. What are taxpayers getting? What are students and educators getting for the investments that we are making? We have some limitations under state law of how specific we can be related to that funding. But obviously we'll be addressing some of the outcomes in the budget conversations. And then similarly, we'll be having additional meetings and committee work sessions to follow up with the implementation of some of the changes that we would expect. I mean, there are challenges that need to be addressed. They are very serious. They have warranted, at this point, 3 Inspector General reports. And so, we will continue to do our diligence to follow through on the findings and to make sure that the changes are being implemented and that the accountability and transparency that we would expect of a public school system are being followed through on.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Up next, we have a question from Emmanuel Villalobos with Telemundo 44. We have my colleague Lucia Jimenez on the line who will help translate. Emmanuel, I'll let you go ahead and ask, and Lucia, if you can step in, that would be great.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I don't have any question. I only need the Spanish version of the opening remarks. If you can help me with that, Lucia, it will be great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think we can get that to you after, or Emmanuel can stay on after. We'll have Lucia get in contact with you with that. Now I'll go ahead and pass it back to Council President Friedson. We don't have any more questions here in the chat or raised hands for closing remarks. To you, Council President.
Thank you, Jordan. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for the tough questions. I really do appreciate it. Value the work that you do and the efforts that our local media has been undertaking to ask tough questions. The council will embrace its role to ask tough questions and look forward to a conversation on February the 8th. We'll be doing it in a public setting, and hopefully we'll be adding additional answers to the questions that you and we continue to have.